In the 3rd year of Cyrus, king of Persia, a thing was revealed unto Daniel, whose name was called Belteshazzar. And the thing was true, but the time appointed was long, and he understood the thing, and had understanding of the vision. In those days I, Daniel, was mourning 3 full weeks. I ate no pleasant bread, neither came flesh nor wine in my mouth, neither did I anoint myself at all, till 3 whole weeks were fulfilled, meaning 21 literal days historically, but there are also 3 weeks of years, meaning 21 years, that took place from 1948, which is the year the 4th trumpet began to sound, to 1969, which is the year the 5th trumpet began to sound. 5 means grace in biblical numerics, and the grace period of the 5th trumpet will end at the woe of the 5th trumpet when Satan and his angels get cast to earth. That's when the one world political system written of in Revelation 13 emerges, which then gets wounded to death, after which it becomes a one-world religious system when Satan appears as the Antichrist at the woe of the 6th trumpet, when all 6 trumpets of deception are sounding at the same time. And in the 24th day of the 1st month, as I was by the side of the great river, which is Hiddekel, meaning the Tigris River, then I lifted up mine eyes and looked, and behold, a certain man clothed in linen, whose loins were girded with fine gold of Uphaz. His body also was like the beryl, and his face as the appearance of lightning, and his eyes as lamps of fire, and his arms and his feet like in color to polished brass, and the voice of his words like the voice of a multitude. And I, Daniel, alone saw the vision, for the men that were with me saw not the vision, but a great quaking fell upon them, so that they fled to hide themselves. Therefore I was left alone, and I saw this great vision, and there remained no strength in me, for my comeliness was turned in me into corruption, and I retained no strength. Yet heard I the voice of his words, and when I heard the voice of his words, then was I in a deep sleep on my face, and my face toward the ground, and behold, an hand touched me, which set me upon my knees and upon the palms of my hands. And he said unto me, O Daniel, a man greatly beloved, understand the words that I speak unto thee, and stand upright, for unto thee am I now sent. And when he had spoken this word unto me, I stood trembling. Then said he unto me, Fear not, Daniel, for from the first day that thou didst set thine heart to understand and to chasten thyself before thy God, thy words were heard, and I am come for thy words. But the prince of the kingdom of Persia withstood me 21 days. But lo, Michael, one of the chief princes, came to help me, and I remained there with the kings of Persia. The so-called prince of the kingdom of Persia being a name for Satan that looks forward to when he appears as the Antichrist at the woe of the 6th trumpet, 2.5 months after he gets cast from heaven to earth, along with his angels at the woe of the 5th trumpet, after the war in heaven you can read of in Revelation chapter 12. As we'll see in Daniel 11 verse 2, there shall stand up yet 3 kings in Persia, and the 4th shall be richer than they all, looking forward ultimately to the first 3 kings of the south, which are Ephraim, Judah, and Manasseh, meaning the Christian nations, geopolitically speaking, with the 4th king of the south being the Lion of Daniel chapter 7, which will be made up of all 3, including Europe, because by that time Germany, which is Judah geopolitically speaking, will have most likely filled in the post-Brexit power vacuum. So then the 4th king in Persia that we'll read of in Daniel chapter 11 is ultimately symbolic of the lion, meaning the Christian nations, up until 666, when Satan appears as the Antichrist. That's when he becomes the so-called prince of the kingdom of Persia, because that's when the Christian nations become non-Christian nations, when most Christians begin worshiping Satan instead of Christ. Now I am come to make thee understand what shall befall thy people in the latter days, for yet the vision is for many days. And this will continue into Daniel chapter 11, where the first 20 verses have to do with Ephraim, Judah, and Manasseh, meaning the United Kingdom, including the British Commonwealth, Germany, and the United States, beginning in 1914 with the First World War. The result of the First World War being the League of Nations, followed by the Second World War, which brought about the United Nations, which is the great horn of the he-goat in Daniel chapter 8, verse 8, that has to get broken before the 4 beasts of Daniel chapter 7 can emerge at the woe of the 5th trumpet. The United Nations nations came into being in 1945 when the third trumpet began to sound, and then in 1948 the fourth trumpet began to sound when Kenite-occupied Israel came into being. Then in 1969, 3 weeks of years later, the same year of the Apollo 11 space mission, the fifth trumpet began to sound, which began the grace period that will end after the great horn of the he-goat gets broken and the one-world political system emerges at the beginning of the 5-month-long hour of temptation. And when he had spoken such words unto me, I set my face toward the ground, and I became dumb. And behold, one like the similitude of the sons of men touched my lips. Then I opened my mouth and spake, and said unto him that stood before me, O my Lord, by the vision my sorrows are turned upon me, and I have retained no strength. For how can the servant of this my Lord talk with this my Lord? For as for me, straightway there remained no strength in me, neither is there breath left in me. Then there came again and touched me one like the appearance of a man, and he strengthened me, and said, O man greatly beloved, fear not, peace be unto thee. Be strong, yea, be strong. And when he had spoken unto me, I was strengthened, and said, Let my Lord speak, for thou hast strengthened me. Then said he, Knowest thou wherefore I come unto thee? And now will I return to fight with the prince of Persia, meaning he who will become the so-called prince of Persia in the midst of Daniel's 70th week, which was 7 years, but is now 5 months, as we'll see in Daniel 11:31. Satan, when he appears as the Antichrist, being the abomination that maketh desolate, who will cause most Christians to be killed spiritually when the final 2.5 months or 70 evenings of the 5-month-long hour of temptation begin. And when I am gone forth, lo, the prince of Grecia shall come, which is another name for Satan that looks forward to when he gets cast to earth at the woe of the fifth trumpet along with his angels. As we'll see in Daniel chapter 11 verse 21, the vile person, meaning Satan, stands up in the estate of the one who sends a raiser of taxes, written of in Daniel 11:20, which is the same thing as the great horn of the he-goat in Daniel chapter 8 verse 8. Grecia was the type, but in the ultimate futurist sense, Grecia symbolizes the shadow government of the Kenites that brought about first the League of Nations and then the United Nations, which means the prince of Grecia being spoken of here is the vile person of Daniel 11:21, meaning Satan when he gets cast to earth along with his angels at the woe of the fifth trumpet. That's when the one-world political system of Revelation 13 emerges to replace the United Nations, and as you can see in Revelation chapter 13 verse 2, the dragon, meaning Satan, gives the one-world political system his power and his seat and great authority, after which it receives a deadly wound, as you can see in Revelation 13 verse 3, and then at the woe of the sixth trumpet, the one-world political system becomes a one-world religious system. That's when Satan becomes the so-called prince of Persia, because it's at that time most Christians will be deceived into believing Satan is Christ's return, which is when they'll be grafted into Satan's family tree along with the Kenites, who are the natural branches thereof. But I will show thee that which is noted in the scripture of truth, and there is none that holdeth with me in these things but Michael your prince.